G'day folks. Well, I've got a little interesting vid to put up. Now, it's about a fella that got in contact with me, guys, and he wants to turbo a 253 with an automatic transmission. Now, he's acquired a 1976 HZ Kingswood. I'm assuming it's a sedan. He's got it from his granddad. Now, it's got a stock standard 4.2 litre with a Trimatic box, and he's sort of fairly keen on rear mounting it, and he just wants my opinion, some advice on what sort of turbo to put in, what recommendations there, and a few other little bits and pieces. So from my bit of knowledge that I've gained and experience over the last sort of 4 years, I can give you a bit of an idea on turbo selection. There's options for fuel pumps. Bear in mind, he wants to keep it budget minded. So let's sort of delve into it and see if we can help him out. Now, turbo selection. Now, if it's a stock standard 253, being the red engine, which is the earlier one, they do have a compression ratio of around 9:1, give or take. Now, depends, because if the heads have been planed, they've been rebuilt overbore, that's going to raise compression. So let's say we've got a compression ratio of between 9 and 10:1, sort of ballpark. Now, the turbo I recommend for street use only. You want something that's going to sort of spool up fairly early and give you incredible, sensational mid-range. We're not sort of chasing top-end power, because the camshaft, the heads, it's not going to offer that anyway in NA form. So we're sort of thinking 3,000 to around sort of 4,500, maybe 5 at tops. So this is the range of horsepower basically we want to sort of tap into, guys. So now this turbo here is a 60mm compressor, and it's a 57 on the turbine side. The turbo, or the turbine scroll, which is this unit here, is quite small. Don't ask me the size of it, because honestly I've forgotten. But these turbos, they do put these on the RB25s, or 26s, sorry, RB26 I think, and 30, so 2.6 to 3 litre. And apparently these are quite popular with the drifters, for the reason that they've got quick spoolage and offer reasonable power. The turbo on this one sort of maxes out around 500-ish horsepower, and I have maxed this turbo out, so on the 308, because I did run this as my first choice. Good little turbo, was fantastic, but for a 253 I think this, you're right on the money, especially when it comes to a standard type engine, and you only want something mid-range, and it'll be fantastic. This would spool up around 2,800 revs. I've sort of got full boost out of it. So I think anywhere with a 253, you're sort of looking at 331 for boost. So that's just a journal bearing too. And from memory, I think I paid roughly $1,000 for the turbo. They call it, actually, it's a Japanese, it's Kinagawa. Actually, not a bad turbo. And I think if you can see the number there on it, it's a 25G TD06H, and I know it's got a T4 flange on the exhaust. Okay, so I think something around that ballpark would work quite well for you. Now, the second question that you wanted to know, what size charge pipe I run on mine. Well, I run a 2.75 aluminium. I couldn't decide whether it was 2.5 or go to 3, so I settled for in between. Works fine. I've had no issues with it, and I can't see why you couldn't use the same, because it lends for higher horsepower levels later down the track. Now you say, well, I'll give you just a couple of tips before I sort of move the camera. Fuel pump. Now yes, the A1000 is a fantastic pump, but if you're budget minded, you can go for them Bosch 044 pumps. From memory, don't quote me, but I think they sort of service around 600 to 700 sort of horsepower range, with a return style regulator which you'll need to run, a rising rate. I think that it'd be a fantastic pump. And of course, whatever fuel line your budget allows, you can run. So I think that'd be a great option there for you, mate. Now, as far as say exhaust goes, like for your system through to the turbo, I think, well, I'd be guessing it's a cast manifold setup. Maybe it's a twin 2 into a 2-inch or a 2.5-inch setup. That's going to work fine. If it's only street, we're not chasing ultimate horsepower at the end of the day. We want a nice bit of drivability, so I think that would be fine. Now, as far as mounting the turbo, I've sort of learnt that with mounting it rubber mount and mounting the turbo rubber mounted, I should say, is fine for the street. Actually, it's a really good way of doing it. But if you're going to be going on extreme levels, like I'm sort of doing with this car now, you really need to solid mount the turbo. So, and I do talk about that in other videos, so you can go back and find out how to sort of set that up with the flexible bellows and rah-de-rah-de-rah. But for street use, rubber mounting a turbo with the exhaust system is fine, and I did run that for a long time with the rubber mounts and had a great success. The issue that I had, I'll just touch on that a bit quickly. The issue I had was under hard braking, and what happens is, because your exhaust system gets so hot, especially when you're really punishing the car, it becomes weak. And the size of the turbo that I'm running on the back of mine, it ended up forcing its way forward and collapsing my header pipes, bending them down, and it just created a lot of issues, which took me a little while to figure out what was going on, because every time I'd sort of come back from a hard run, I'd notice my extractors were just dropping down every time, and that's what the cause was. So solid mounted it, and I haven't had an issue since. So yeah, so just a little bit of advice on that one. The next one, carby selection. Well, it's up to you really, but for me, if I was, and I do plan on actually turboing a little 253 down the track in my ute, so this is why I'm quite excited about giving some advice away, because this is probably what I'll end up doing. I'm going to run well, I would suggest just go with the 650, because I used to use my old work bus for years and I had a 650 on it. It was a spread bore, still a double pumper, but it was a fantastic little carby, and there's no reason why a 650 wouldn't work on a stock 253. You would just have to do some minor tuning with it, pull the jetting out to allow for the not to flood it so much when you stand on it and bog it down. But I think the real key is manifold selection. Don't go for any aftermarket manifold. I would stick with the standard 4-barrel early type manifold, and they work really well with the 253. Don't go opening it up, porting it, or putting an aftermarket manifold on it, because you need airspeed down low to generate power. And it doesn't really matter when the turbo's on song. You know, like a big manifold wouldn't matter so much, but down out of boost, you really need all the airspeed you can get down low. And I think a 4-barrel would offer that. If you went back to a 2-barrel with an adapter, I think it'd be a little bit too restrictive, especially wanting to push some boost into it. I think that's a bit pointless, and too big a carb on a smaller, too small a manifold. A 350 would be as big as you'd want to go on a 2-barrel manifold. So yeah, I think you can just put a little cheap blow-off valve on, mate. It doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. Oh yes, the hat. You wanted to know the hat. Well, I've got the box up here and I'll show you that, buddy. So, give you a bit of an idea on it. I've actually got a spare one there for when I do the ute. You can find them on eBay, cheap as chips, about 150 bucks. But great little manifold hat, and I've had no trouble with it. So, yes. Now, something else I just want to mention too, just a little tip on it. Don't go buying a cheap wastegate. That's my little tip, because that's the only thing that's going to control your boost. Buy a brand name, buy a good one. Turbo Smart, that's the little one I'm running there, which is a 40mm, they call it a comp gate. But the trick is, guys, you've got to graft it in so it can easily get the gas. Don't tee it off like on a 90-degree angle. You've got to sort of graft it in so it can control the boost down low. If you put that on a 90-degree and expect to try and control boost, there's chances that it won't. So I think that's a lot of the secret. It's not so much for the size of it, but its placement that has every, gives you a chance to bleed off that compressed air that's building up in the exhaust system. Yeah, so a good quality gate will do the job nicely. Now, you've seen the videos on my scavenge setup on the back here. There's enough information out there to work all that out, but I'll show you up the front, and I don't think I've showed many people this. Well, I've never really touched on it, but where I put it into the engine, the return oil from the turbo, that it's just straight down where the fuel pump used to be. And I actually made my own little bracket there, little plate, and I've just blended in or welded in 2 half-inch copper pipes. And I've got one here for my drain back on my box, which is my breather box, and the other one's for the drain from the turbo. So works very well, had no issues with it, and I think that's the best place and the easiest place to return oil, either from the breathers and the turbo. So you can kill 2 birds with the 1 stone with that little setup there. When you boost an engine, and you look at, probably all you guys would know, but I'll just say it again, you have to let them breathe. The biggest problem that I found to date when I first started is not having enough breathers on an engine, because once you start pushing it into the engine, you'll get a lot of blow-by and it creates issues, especially for this old style engine being with the oil that runs up to the heads. The trouble that I had, you really need other spots to alleviate crankcase pressure, and I achieved that with fittings into the inlet manifold, and basically run 4 breathers now into that box, and there's 4 out, and I also have the drain back as well, and it just runs back in there. So that's been faultless. And you know what, guys? When you alleviate the pressure inside your engine, you don't get oil leaks. Another little trick there I found the hard way. I remember years ago, I ended up, was in NA form, and I ended up going back the other way, just putting 1 little half-inch breather on it. Absolutely pissed oil out of it everywhere. Blew gaskets, the bloody dipstick flew up out of it. You've got to let them breathe. I can buzz this motor fairly hard on 12 pounds of boost, 15 I've been up there a couple of times, and the dipstick stays in one spot, no spring on it, there's no oil coming out of it, because I've got enough breathers to keep it all happy. Alright folks, well I hope that helps you on your little quest, mate, I really do. It's just a few little basic tips on what's needed for a little 253. Now, as far as, I'll just touch on it before I go. I only just remembered, if you want to, just a quick one on the tune, and I'm sure you're up with it all, but this is what I've done on mine. Just on 7 pound, I run around 20 degrees. That's full timing. With no intercooler, it works very well. It's very conservative. You could run this up to 25, 26 degrees without an issue. For the sake of, to be honest, you probably could with yours, but if you want ultimate safety and reliability, you're better off sacrificing some timing, because you're going to make power anyway, and there's less risk of, especially in the summer's day on hot weather, you get the engine hot for whatever reason, it gets hot, you're not going to start wanting to push the head gaskets out. So I've always liked to keep it a bit under, and because you'll make the power. The power's never the issue with turbos. There's always power to be made with while you're pushing it in. But and keep your air fuels, if you don't have an intercooler or water meth, you need to run just that little bit richer condition. So around your mid 11s is fine, even high 11s. But if you start getting into the 12s and the high 12s on with no aid to control detonation, well, you're running a risk, as far as I'm concerned. I like to keep it very safe, and that's the key for longevity. If you start pushing timing, start leaning your fuel out, you're only asking for trouble in my book. So yeah, all right. I hope that really helps you in your little quest, but I think you're on a winner, mate, if you can turbo your little rig, and I think she'll go beautiful. One other little point before I sign out, your little gearbox too. Look, the advice I can offer, just go easy with it. Learn. Don't push it too hard. Just let the boost build up nice and steady, and feel what the shift points. See how it reacts. That's what I did with this, and it's been fantastic. So it may flare a little bit. Who knows? It's one of those things you're just going to have to just trial and error. But you know about my line pressure issues. I know when you boost these motors and shove that much more torque through them, line pressure increases. So just be aware of that, because it will create thrust. And that's the last thing you want on these motors, because it just ruins them. All right, folks, well, it's cold. I'm going to head back inside again. So I hope someone, not just Deanie's name is, gets something out of this. I hope someone else does too, because that's what it's all about, guys. Sharing the info and sharing that bit of passion, and we're loving it. All right, folks, well, I'll put one up soon. Catch you later.